very scratchy throat. I sinus infection, which a lot of fun. We start off with a public comment. There's nobody here to comment, so we'll move right into our agenda. Organization update on workshops are occurring on the fourth Thursday of the month. That's just a change of date.
We're gonna be doing one every month, or?
No, it's just an
when we-
option, just an option. But we need to have a date.
Well, I think we need to plan between policies, schedules of fees, code. I think we need to just plan for it to be on people's calendar, and if we get to a point where it doesn't have to, I think it's one thing, but I think with stuff not being touched in a while or up to date, I think it's just a good idea to kind of hash some of these things out to not lengthen town board meetings so they can be hashed and then,
So we'll be Thursdays for a while.
Right.
yeah.
But in the summer, I don't see us meeting, it's too busy for everyone. So is everyone all right with that?
Mhm.
Okay, the next is a liquor license.
Hold on, do we have to make a motion?
Well, what I suggest then, because usually if you set up workshop meetings, like you do for your regular meetings, it's in your organizational meeting, we'll meet regularly on the second Thursday of the month for our regular business meeting. You're gonna have routine workshop meetings, then it's in that as well, and then you're not doing a notice of special meeting for. we've been
That's the
noticing
purpose, that was, I thought. Yeah,
So if you are inclined to have that, there'd be a resolution, just say we're amending the organizational meeting to establish workshop meetings on the fourth Thursday of the month. Unless, I can put it there unless they're canceled by notice, otherwise they're not gonna be noticed, you're just gonna be here on those Thursdays, but if you're not gonna hold one, it should be noticed that you're not holding it.
So we'll do that for our next month.
Would it be
Next month's
simpler
meeting.
then if we just had them at a regular town board meeting and just added 20 minutes or so?
No.
You don't have to do full with all these notices and all this.
Well, if we do the resolution, we don't have to do notices anymore.
We have to do notice
Unless
if we're not.
unless you
I
have-
mean,
You can't have a resolution that says, well, I guess for the balance of the year, you can pick your months, maybe? Well, but that gets confusing, I think, for folks. If it's a routine scheduled monthly meeting, then you can say it's gonna be on the fourth Thursday of the month. If you
Well, I
wanna do
mean-
it at your regular meeting, you can.
Can we tweak our town board meetings so that we perhaps postpone some things if we think there's gonna be a longer time needed for organizational stuff, and then we can not have separate meetings each month? I mean, not that I don't like you guys and wanna hang out with you.
The only purpose of this is so that if we decide to have a workshop, we don't have to do all the notifications.
Because it's costly.
Exactly.
Well, because you figure, we still got like 3 more policies, then fees, then code. There's 5 months right there.
Right. At a minimum.
So,
Why don't you just do it on your own free time, and then we don't have to do it?
okay. I can work on that.
Okay, whatever, just a thought.
I mean, we can keep noticing them, but I was just trying to, if it's,
Because noticing costs money.
right, because we gotta publish, which, yes, it's $20 or $22 a month, but it's also the time, to make sure everything's changed and sent to them and all of those pieces. I just think it's a regular thing happening right now.
Can't we say if necessary?
Then the whole, it's really notice for the public,
Yeah.
and they don't know if they're gonna hold it now. Yeah.
Whatever the board wants. I just thought we were trying to make it simpler.
Keep it simple then, do it as simple as possible. So I think the resolution for monthly meetings.
Okay.
Do we need
Next
a
to
mo-
the store here,
I'm gonna do a resolution for the regular
Oh.
April meeting.
Okay.
So that will handle that.
they want to open a pizza, a restaurant, Italian restaurant, and they are going to apply for a liquor license. I don't know, I guess they need our approval.
So, under the Alcoholic Beverage Control Law, the ABC law, when someone applies for a liquor license, the municipalities put on notice where it's to be located. you have the option of submitting any comments if you want to. And the law gives you a period of at least 30 days to consider that if you wanted to submit comments. Obviously, the State Liquor Authority makes the decision, but if there are certain reasons you wanted to submit a comment, it's close to this, it's close to a public park, whatever. The law gives you the ability to comment. If you don't want to comment, then you can say we have no comments and that can go. But that's under the state ABC law. The municipality can review it and choose to make comments if you want.
I hope to have like a little restaurant, like
Yeah,
sit down and eat, that'd be great.
If you've ever been in the building, there's quite a bit of space for tables and stuff in there.
Is the building they renovated a while back? and
They started, my son, and I think you rented it there too, didn't you? We rented it, but it was a bad fit at the time. Boobies was still operating their deli here and they put restrictions on what you couldn't sell. And sharing the fryers and sharing the ovens and all that, it just got to be too much. But these particular people bought the entire building and they don't have the restrictions and they're able to manage it the way they want. I think they have a better chance of success than fast cheese place or pizza places have. So I'm in favor. I think it's a good idea. I hope it works.
That sounds great.
I know it's interesting.
As long as the pizza's good.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody does want to make a comment, just, send it to my office and I'll make sure it gets sent on.
So should we make positive comments or just?
You can
ignore it?
certainly.
Yeah.
You can make positive comments on it, and if you support it, you can say the municipality is fully supportive, sure.
Except that we don't know who they are.
It's
Do
my, yeah, it's my company, same thing going in the
Never
store.
mind. Okay. Oh, all right. So we do know who they are.
They've been in the restaurant business for quite a while,
Sounds fine to me.
I see them every Friday in the bank.
Sounds fine. Always depositing money.
Oh, wow.
June.
huh? Okay, the next on our agenda is the dog kennel. I gave it a lot of thought since our last meeting. To make it viable, you really have to cut down on expenses. So my proposal is that we rent the building for $10 a month and that we don't hire anybody up front, and that I'm already a town employee. Let's see how many dogs we get, how much work it is, and I'll just do whatever needs to be done in the beginning. The town of Sand Lake has committed $5,000. I'd like Postage to commit the same. I can't promise you that the county is gonna come through with the money, but they said they would. But I don't make a promise that never comes true. But we have about $2,000 in donations already. We've had doors donated, we had windows donated. We have an electrician that's willing to do the work. The pieces are there. I figure if we got 2 dogs a week, it would bring in over $10,000. So I think it will make money, but it's the upfront cost that's gonna hurt. So that's where we are with it right now. And, if you oppose it, please let me know now before any more work goes into it.
Are you gonna move your office there? Just a thought. You don't mind, do you? She never knows if I'm kidding or not.
Sometimes I just keep a straight face.
You're trying. It's not working very well.
Well, then the next step would be an environmental review.
Yeah, so the way this would work is the board would entertain a resolution to approve entering into the lease facility. It'll be a proposed lease. You've got a draft of it that can be tightened up before your April meeting. And then there would also be the form of the intermunicipal agreement if other municipalities want to use the facility. When a municipality leases property, it is subject to seeker. So Wayne's looked at the building, he'll need to help the board fill out the environmental assessment form, walk you through that so you can make a seeker determination. Obviously, some issues came up concerning sound. So that'll be an issue that's got to be dealt with under seeker, potential noise or sound impacts, if any others. But Wayne can walk through that. Then there'd be a resolution to approve the lease in the form and content attached. There's a couple of things that would need to go into that lease. We talked about last time, and it just went over with June, that there's some questions about, well, wait a minute, that was a PUD or a PED. But this would be in the nature of a municipal public facility. You'd be fulfilling the requirements for a municipality under the Ag and Markets Law for stray or abandoned dogs or vicious dogs. You would make certain findings about whether this is considered, for lack of better terms, a governmental function or a proprietary, like economic function. And if you determine it is in the nature of a governmental or public function, then the general rule of zoning doesn't apply. It's a public building. And there's certain factors we'll put in the resolution, we'll guide you through that. If you determine it's a public or municipal function, then the zoning is not relevant. You're not subject to your own zoning if it's a public municipal facility. And then the other part is, when a municipality leases property, among other things, it is subject to permissive referendum. So that'd be in the resolution too. If you want to move forward at your April meeting, I do up the form of notification. There's a certain notice you put out that you've adopted this resolution. It is subject to permissive referendum. And I do have a form of petition that we would modify for that, for this facility, and they'd be on file at Sue's office for people to come in and pick up. So if you're inclined to move forward with that, we can work on getting the details of that. We can coordinate with Wayne and try to get all this pulled together for you.
Question.
Well, Wayne did come out and look at it, and basically what he says, it's a brick building with insulated walls and sheetrock. It's pretty much soundproof now, but there are some other things you can do to, and there's things they make that hang from the ceiling, and he doesn't know what the cost of those would be, but he's gonna put together a plan. He looked at the wiring, he said the basic wiring's in pretty good shape, and that the building is structurally sound, but it needs some work.
How's the roof?
They replaced the roof, it's got a new roof on it.
What about the septic system?
It's the health department approved septic system, it has 2 bathrooms, and
There's a leach field and everything on the site
Yeah.
and everything? Okay.
I did meet with your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying he's enthusiastically behind it, but he's not opposing it, and he says it's a worthy cause. I met with Marty Gibbons, basically the same thing. If you can keep the noise from being a problem, he doesn't really have a problem with it. But both those individuals are worried that it's gonna get out of control and that it's gonna be a monster that we can't reel back in. But they were both under the impression that we're taking dogs from Troy, which we're not, so. And they thought we were gonna board dogs and people would be able to drop dogs off there, and that's not this facility. So, any other questions?
This scope of work, that came from Tracy then?
Yeah. Tracy said he'd oversee the work being done. So, I don't know who the electrician is that volunteered there.
Vicky.
We also had 2 brand new windows and a brand new door donated.
Are they the right size?
Well, they're standard, so.
Okay,
And,
good.
you know, framing around them.
Because you know how the doors, people have like a door on the curb. Yeah,
No, this came from a contractor who actually said if we need help installing it. we'll do it.
Good.
That brings us to the town hall roof, which is complicated. We threw in there the masonry work, so now we have 3 more bids on top of the bids we already had.
But all I have is like the one company though, All Phase, I thought like.
There's 2.
There's 2,
Allphase
that's what
ones.
makes it confusing. There's 2
There's
companies
2.
called Allphase.
Yeah, but All Phase for the chimney, I thought you said like, Huffy was gonna look and.
He
a
did.
couple
Yeah,
other
it
people.
should have been in there. He
I have
found
it.
I don't know.
Too.
I
That's
have
all
it.
I have is
He
the
was
one.
4,100.
Did
Here's
they-
Hopkins right here.
Did they break it down as to what was
Yeah.
like the chimney and like the,
Well, my suggestion is that we use Allphase for the roof and Huffy for the masonry.
which all phase?
The first Allphase.
The all,
All phase without the.
The other Allphase is through Pinnacle,
Well, the one
it's
that's,
a subcontractor.
okay. I'm good with your
But Huffy
recommendation.
is actually a local guy.
Yeah.
And I actually know him, I think he'll do a good job.
Yeah, you won't find a better mason.
He's not the
I'll tell you
cheapest,
that.
but he's
She's good.
a good mason.
That whole
And I really
thing.
believe the gentleman from Allphase that came out and looked at the roof, he could probably do the masonry work too, but it's not his specialty. So I think, my recommendation is we hire him to do the roof and Huffy to do the masonry.
Sounds good to me.
Any other discussion?
What
I
else we
don't know,
got?
I'm definitely good with Jay, I just kind of thought that Pinnacle was like more lead, but if,
One of my problems with Pinnacle is they're very large and they subcontract everything out, so you don't even know who you're really getting to do the work. I mean, they're a reliable company, but the people that are actually putting the roof on are people they just hired, you know, a different company.
So what do we need to do with regard to that?
I need a motion.
Do we need a motion or to give him the authority to sign the agreement? Is that it?
Yeah, generally, it's, you did obtain the required bids for competitive bidding
Yep.
purposes. You reviewed them, and you award the agreements and then authorize the supervisor to execute the documents in furtherance of that award.
So, can I just make that motion?
I'll second.
Do we need a roll call vote for that?
Not a motion.
All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? All right, I'll contact them.
What has to get done first, the roof or the chimney?
The
The
chimney.
chimney has to be done
First.
first. And then the work in the front can be done in the spring. And then
So-
this,
The mason quotes is the chimney and pointing it up, the planer box and getting the top 3 cemented, the front and what needs to be done there. And then also there's some leaking coming into this staircase, so fixing that. And DJ's also, I'm gonna vacuum out the drains to see if we can help cleaning up where our gutters go from the building here.
Good deal.
and the money from this is not gonna come from code. You guys realize it. We talked about this at the last meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, the next one is lighting. Tiffany did some work, with National Grid. For $7,000, we can pay to have all the lights changed over to LED. There's a rebate of $5,000, so it really only costs us $2,000. The yearly savings is $9,000. So,
So it's like a 2-month payback.
Yeah.
That's a deal.
but,
we don't have the controls that we would have with the other company.
no,
Not smart controls.
we don't have smart controls, but if we do it this way, then we're totally responsible. We have to change the bulbs.
No, no, no.
No,
Yes.
no,
No,
no.
this is National
No.
Grid.
No, they gave you like 2 different things.
No, National Grid still owns it.
Yeah, we wouldn't own them. We're just paying them to change them over.
To the LEDs.
Yeah.
For the 6,000,
7,000.
6648.
Yep.
But then I thought if we do that though, I thought they said that we're totally responsible for operation, maintenance and repair of the streetlight system.
Is
What
that,
is that?
are you looking at the letter? So,
It's my understanding they still own everything. We're just paying them to do it.
Cause I want them to own everything.
They would be, but we wouldn't.
so this packet,
Yeah.
this letter was what, the chart, the 23,000, is that,
23,000.
yeah, so this was the letter that they initially did when we asked them to do the buyback numbers. And then he pointed out this.
Remember when we had the other company there and they said,
5,000.
ask them what it would cost to buy it back? That was that number, but once we bought them back, we'd have to hire that other company to install them, and it would be our lights,
Right.
but we'd have the control of being able to dim them, figure out where they are. That's different than this one. This one here is, we're just basically paying for them to change light bulbs over. And if we want added poles, we have to tell them where the added poles are, and that'd be probably an additional charge as well.
You said that's like 2 different things too, like even if we don't switch over to LED and want more lights added, he said that's a conversation.
Totally separate.
Totally,
Just call them
it's
anytime you want and
totally separate. He's like, that is a little bit of a process to get them added. He's like, that's anything, but I think I don't say I finally had the right contact, but finally had a contact he said someone's supposed to be doing like a review with us every so often
And they don't.
anyways,
Their
so.
response, National Grid is gonna be National Grid no matter what we do. They're not that responsive. They're not that great, but this is cheap. We probably won't get any better response when the light goes out in the
They
future
have
than
a
we're
much
getting now.
higher, they have
But
much
LEDs don't
higher,
go out as bad.
yeah, much higher reliability.
I mean, we're making an improvement. It's cheap, but I still don't have faith in National Grid being a great
Well,
company
it's
that,
probably gonna take longer than you want, but it'll happen. And
So I just have it backwards.
I think you have it backward. I'll confirm with the National Grid guy, but I'm pretty sure that they still own them. We just have to pay for the switch over, but then save the money, so.
And then stay
with the
there.
other one, we'd be renting the arms and we had to own the lights themselves.
Right.
there's none of that.
This is them just changing bulbs over to LEDs.
Do they give you a time frame?
No, that was in my last email to him, was like kind of what the time frame was, and I didn't get an answer back.
Well, it said first come, first serve for the grant on here, so the sooner we get that
Right.
in, the better. Do we need any kind of approval for this? from the board?
I would check, I'm presuming yes, because you're expending public funds. Does National Grid need anything written from, like a resolution?
So they said that they put a letter on town letterhead
Mhm.
to kind of like start this project. He didn't send an agreement to stick with National Grid. He sent an agreement over if we went with Real Term and did the whole
Oh,
buyback
correct,
thing.
right,
But I
right,
think
right.
a letter has to be sent to them saying we want to do the conversion through National Grid, and then that kind of starts the process, and then,
So I think.
So do we need a motion?
Right, to move it along, the motion would be, authorize the supervisor to send a letter to National Grid requesting that the existing streetlights be converted to LED lights at a cost not to exceed $7,000.
Yeah.
But understand that you will be applying for that, is it a $5,000
Yeah.
grant?
Yeah,
But it would authorize, an amount not to exceed 7,000.
Can I make that motion?
do I have a second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
do you have a
Random-
question, Eric? You're like.
I just had a random question. I don't know if you ever paid attention, like, so when we switch it over, will we still have the cover underneath the bulb? Right, so the bulb's in here, and there's a cover underneath it? Because I drive around Troy and you see these new ones and there's just like a little skinny light bulb up there.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna see.
That's what we're gonna get.
That's all
There's
it
no cover underneath it.
Yeah.
No,
But
that's a
you mark that right
diffuser to
there.
spread it out the light.
We're not.
And
Oh.
it's actually what that's doing is it's a reflector. So it's
To shoot
reflecting
out.
it up to the top where it's a parabolic kind of shiny reflector. This doesn't need that, the LEDs just.
They're night and day.
It's better, it just looks different.
Yeah.
Like it looks different, all right?
Where we have put the LEDs in the parking lot in San Lincoln, it's night and day.
They're better.
My
So,
question.
do you want me to also start to have conversations, kind of a side thing, about additional lights? Like, I know we've kind of talked about like the parking lot here, or do we want,
I'd like to see 3 lights here, but I'd like to see them in a colonial design to match our library and our town hall. I don't want, just, and they can do it. A decorative light, not just a regular street light.
National Grid will do decorative lights?
Yeah,
I pay for it. Right?
Yeah, we're gonna pay for it.
That's fine, but yeah, it would look better then.
that was on one of those charts, was decorative lighting was a different.
I'll ask them to show me what they have, and if you want, I can bring it to a board and
Are
pick
there
out what it is.
others? I mean, I don't wanna open a can of worms or make it, but like, are there other streets that people have heard, like, that,
Half East Postal Kill.
like, I know there's a guy on Flint or one of those, his son has disabilities, and he asked if he could reach out to National Grid about a light or something, because it was like a safety concern, because like, sounds kind of like a flight risk. But I didn't know if there are other streets we wanted to,
Well, that could be put into a separate project of light requests.
right. I didn't know if anyone had heard if I started
Yeah,
this
me.
conversation with him.
Okay.
Okay.
Guys, you wanna move on or?
Yes.
That's fine. All right. Review policy, creation of employee benefit policy. This is June and Tiffany.
I guess it kind of goes back to Andy too, that we were.
Little bit, yeah, all right.
Didn't miss any.
You got some new committee assignments, so.
All of them.
So because the employee policy goes back to 2001, I would think maybe like that the resolutions would trump anything that was in the policy before.
No problem.
Okay, so, say they've been making resolutions right along since like 1997, 2013, 2015, 2016.
Yep.
If we take like the most recent resolution, that would be more relevant, that would supersede the employee policy that goes back to 2001.
So presuming that, let's say you adopted a policy in 2001, and there were subsequent like tweaks to it, is that what the intervening resolutions would have been?
Right.
Then
But it didn't get in the policy.
To really understand what your current policy is, it would be good to know all those resolutions from 2001 to date and be able to see, when you read them all collectively together, what's the current policy? Because they could have been amending different parts of it, or different.
And they did. There's like retirement, there's
Yeah.
health insurance, there's whatever.
Yeah.
So, and it gets very confusing at some point. And at one point, which Tiff and I talked about, but I think might be the easiest, it said that, just say like for health insurance,
Mhm.
that the town employees would follow the highway contract.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's kind of simple. The highway contract is done every couple of years or whatever. So if we're gonna redo the whole policy, could we then think about like the vacation schedules, the days, the holidays, whatever,
Oh, in my
following
opinion,
the same
right.
way?
You've done some things in these intervening 22 years.
Right.
But you're taking a look at that policy right now. You could say, with all of these intervening amendments, this is our current policy. You have every authority to amend it, how you want it to read now. And then, like you did for the earlier two ones on procurement and investment, the resolution would simply say, we are adopting the attached updated and amended policy, and this is our current policy. So if you want to make even more changes to the policy, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it would just be simpler, maybe if it followed the highway contract, as far as like sick days, personal days, vacation days, that everybody was all on the same page.
Is that consistent with all those amendments?
Well, there's amendments in 2013 and 2000, resolutions in 2013 and 2017 for the health insurance that says that the town employees will pay like the same percentage. Well, that hasn't been kept up, and like your percentages go with your hire dates. So now we would have to go back and find out when everybody was hired and make sure that they're paying the right amount, that they're contributing the right portion to the health insurance plan, the right percentage that they're responsible for to the health insurance plan that follows when they were hired. Does that make sense? No.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be accurate.
So what do you want to do?
Right?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
I don't know, I just think it's like
I think
simpler if
it's
we started.
cleaner if we, because then it's something that we know is getting looked at every few years, whereas a document that may or may not make sense. I mean, even just looking at our employee benefit policy and you look at health insurance coverage and you look at the full-time versus part-time, I'm sure it's a typo, but I'm guessing it's supposed to say, for the part-time, it says between 30 to 35 hours, 85% of the monthly premium paid by the town. But then you go down, it says 25, but less than 35 will pay 67%. So like, I'm guessing it's a typo and supposed to be 25 to 30, but it's, if it had been reviewed more frequently, I guess is the word, then some of these things would have been.
Because they passed all these resolutions, but it didn't get into the policy.
And I know when we had the.
So then what you have to do then is you have to update the policy and read all those resolutions and incorporate them into
Yeah.
the new version of the policy
Because like even with
to make it
retirement,
consistent.
right, we just changed retirement.
Right, but then once we get that document updated with all those revisions, then we can then go and approve that.
Right. Yeah. And a good idea, if you want to, that's part of your, if you want to review them more frequently, it's part of your organizational meeting.
And we should probably, if we do make any resolutions in the future that update this, it should be included immediately and have a new policy approved.
Well,
So
then
it's-
it's because it could follow,
So then
the
it
highway
stays,
contract.
yeah, but the key thing is to keep it consistent.
right, because that's like, what's that up to 24?
June 24th, I think.
Dave, that's a fair point too. That's why the last two resolutions were written saying we're adopting the amended and updated policy in the form attached to make sure you've got a standalone document. You don't have to look at various resolutions.
No.
This is it. If you're gonna make a change, I know it's more paper, but you attach the amended full policy, then you know that's the current
Exactly,
enforced policy.
exactly.
I think it's good practice.
So the policy has to be brought up to date with all the resolutions.
Yeah.
And then once that's rewritten, then we can approve it.
Yes, and then do we want to follow the remaining portions for like the,
What you're
Highway
proposing is
contract?
changing some of the policy.
right, to follow highway? So everybody, all town employees are consistent in like when they,
Yeah, but that might be giving additional benefits to some people that they don't have right now. So that could be a major change, right?
And we negotiate the contract with them. We don't negotiate.
Well, I
I
think,
think the first thing to do is get it up to date. And then once we have that, we can review that and say, do we want it? And what it would take to make it consistent with the highway, and how much of a change that would be for different
well, okay,
employees.
because there's two different things. There's resolutions that say that all the town employees' health insurance will follow highway. So
And then that
that's,
should be brought into the policy.
so that's the one thing.
Okay,
Then retirement is like different. There's resolutions for retirement too, but then we just pass new resolutions for retirement. So I don't know how that's gonna fit. But then,
Well, those got done through the contract.
right.
Hmm.
I mean, there's
Now you're gonna
resolutions,
change every time we have a contract.
there's resolutions that say town employees should only have individual coverage. That's not the case in some instances. Sue has like two persons, right?
right, but then there's a resolution for elected, because you have, so we also don't have, and this came from when the state auditor was in, she said a definition in our employee benefit policy should be elected officials. And she said it might be two categories, like full-time versus not full-time. So that's what kind of started this, but there's also resolutions about elected officials. and all
They
that.
don't-
So there's a
doesn't-
whole,
I think that was 2013 or something, that
I
doesn't
think
apply
so.
to them. So it's just a mess.
that's why the first thing we do is get it all edited with all the resolutions included.
Okay, but if you're, I guess that's the question, if you're gonna edit, then there's full-time employees, there's part-time employees, there's retired employees. Do we wanna follow the initial employee benefit policy for that, and then make health insurance like the resolution that said? I mean, that doesn't
Well, the
work.
things that deal with insurance that are under the union contract, just keep separate and everything else. put in a different file. And once they're all compiled, we'll look at them all and decide what to do then.
I think if I maybe put this or parts of it into coverage and you're gonna have
Sorry, guys.
multiple, I'll call it like multiple columns, like benefit policy, resolution since then, and then highway contract, so then we can see it as a comparison. Is that gonna help make it a cleaner to then see what's getting pulled from, columns B and C to put into column A to change the employee benefit
Why don't
policy?
you do it and we'll see what it looks like and see if we understand it.
Well, who has insurance? Tracy and
Tracy and
Sue?
Sue, yeah,
Okay, so Sue's an elected one, Tracy is not.
not. But like, that's where it gets tricky, like your
Because,
definitions here don't match.
right. And like Tracy, we were paying like the full shot, and we shouldn't have been if we went by the resolutions, because they're supposed to be paying the portion, right?
Right, so like and I don't wanna make it like struggle, and that's why the sheet on the big paper, I didn't put names, cause I was trying to look at it as position, so it wasn't someone's, name, but this is what we're doing for this position currently.
Well, it's a lot to take in without seeing it. If you can categorize it, like we do it when we do our organizational meeting, just make the 3 categories. On a side note, I'd like permission to change our insurance broker. The broker we have now is useless, not effective, and non-responsive. Our highway guys have gone nearly a month without eye care now, right? Maybe longer.
Last April.
I've talked to
Last
them.
April,
That includes Sue and Tracy.
almost a year.
I personally called our broker's boss, and he promised me he would, and I still haven't got nothing.
I have had very good luck with Darcy at Nicole and Jesse and Troy.
Well, we had a gentleman, what was it?
He was with Brown and Brown, and then
Brown and Brown does, some of the local towns. He does seem like this.
Rights Group, they emailed, I think that's who called you today. And then he sent an email, so I had a conversation with him. Who
Is
did
this
you
gonna
say?
be a competitive bidding type of situation?
I don't know how this, because we don't pay the broker, so I don't know.
Brokers are just brokers. So they
So
get,
they often cover the same companies,
right, they
Right.
get paid back somehow
right,
through,
their commission.
Jim, did you guys interview different brokers before?
What
Been through
happened-
Shane Clark forever now. It's been a long time.
yes, and I think the problem came about because that's when they got bought out. Our broker got bought out, Pool Insurance got bought out by Gallagher.
Mm.
They, Bushy and Clark got bought out by somebody or other, I forget what the name of that was. And I think that's when it happened, that it didn't get picked up with the rest of the health insurance and the Bell division escaped
Right.
there
Nicole and
somehow.
Chesney got bought out by Marshall.
Well, the bottom line is, if you can't get a response from the people that you have working for you and they're taking a commission, it's time to get rid of it.
Well, my sister, who is a CPA, a retired CPA, she used to say that there's 1 phone call people, 2 phone call people, and 3 phone call people. And you really want to have 1 phone call people.
I don't understand why it takes that long. It should be
It shouldn't.
it
In
should
my
be
experience-
out 5 days at max to do this. What do you possibly have to have in front of you to insure people?
Especially when the initial contact admitted that they made a mistake. Now, don't we think like if they would have corrected that by now?
Well, Nicole McChesney, Marshall Sterling, Darcy is a woman I deal with. I've been dealing with them for over 30 years, and they're 1 phone call people.
Do all brokers cover the same?
They have overlapping coverage with
Okay,
insurance.
that's what I just didn't know if that was gonna
Like
be.
that it's CDPHP and MVP and
Well, I want to
Blue Shield.
move faster than, I'd like to,
Are you talking about health insurance,
Yeah.
not business insurance?
Yeah.
No, we're
Okay.
just talking health.
Health insurance. Oh, I don't use it.
What the heck, you should broker, why can't you just call the insurance company?
I deal directly with CDPHP.
That makes sense.
don't have a broker. They have like a sales office.
Yeah.
They just call them directly.
See, what happens with a broker though, because we've had MVP before for the highway. We had CDPHP, and then I think we had MVP, and then blah, blah, blah. What a broker will do for you is compile all of the health insurance providers. So Blue Shield, Empire,
When you're shopping for a new policy,
right,
but once you have a policy, you can
but
just,
that's yearly.
Like, so they
Every year.
yearly send a comparison of different choice.
right, but for
different
customer service, you could just call the company directly. Have you
Yeah.
tried?
Yes, but because we're linked through a broker, they don't deal with you. They tell you you have to contact your broker.
Well, you could tell them that your broker is not responsive. Can you please help me?
At any rate, I really want to move on from this broker. I just
That's fine.
discussed it with him.
I don't know brokers in the.
I don't know, and I didn't even know this was a problem until recently, but I know that I deal with Angrizanos down there, and if I want something to change, it's a phone call, and they change it, and
Right.
it's done over the phone right then. If, my bundled insurance company raises their rates, he contacts me and says, well, you want to switch to this one? I got this one cheaper, and, I mean, isn't that what these guys are supposed to do?
Yes, exactly.
Do you have any existing services agreement with your broker? Anything that you signed with them? Professional
I can look.
services agreement?
I can look.
Just make sure, because we want to make sure if there's a term in there and there's procedure on terminating, that we follow it. But if there's no agreement, just check that if there's a
Okay.
written services agreement.
I think Steve Lenny's mentioned that he uses a broker name. I think they're pretty happy with them. Yeah. You know,
Started with an M, maybe something.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want to keep your business and keep
What
the
is
money coming in,
it
but
who Steve Valeni uses?
yeah. His business.
I can reach out.
He's spoken highly of him.
okay, thank you for that. Yesterday, Harold, and Labarge and our attorney, we all had a, what do you call it, conference call? And Andy, did you get a copy of the contract that they were gonna send the county?
I did.
That's okay?
I haven't looked at it yet. Ben emailed it this afternoon. We did talk about having something in his email indicating it's still subject to review by the town. It wasn't in there, but that's okay. I'll get that review.
Anyway, we're trying to push the county to go quicker. At next month's meeting, I'm gonna ask the town board to consider moving forward with the project. Right now, the cost would be $837 per household if the county comes in with their $900,000. I think you're all aware that we got an additional $677,000 from the state that we didn't have before. Stefanik's office called, talked to Tiffany. They didn't quite understand why we didn't already get a member item, and they promised to work on it to forward it, so.
You said $837 per.
Household, if we get money from the county. And, they said they would time and time again, but, I don't have it in my hand. So this.
What was the initial water project per household?
Pardon me?
What was the initial water project per household? Do you remember?
1,200, 1,400.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 13.
It was a little over $1,300.
Per household.
Yes.
Is that for?
But that was distributed over the 30 years.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Is this also distributed
Yeah.
over?
Yeah.
So what the yearly will be is $800 and some dollars divided.
If we get that money from the county, if that money decreases from the county, this will go up.
But it's also divided by 30 years.
Yes.
So it's a 30-year loan.
I think that the numbers can only get better for us. I don't think they can get worse. But if we submit the worst case scenario, that people choose with the promise that we're going to continue to try and get that cost down. But every month that goes by, everything is going up.
So this is the fixed portion, but they're also going to then have to pay a usage fee, just like.
No,
Yeah.
they estimated.
This
the
is the usage
usage
fee, too.
in
This
there.
is including the,
Right. It's a
in the water
combination.
usage?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an estimate.
That's
Yeah.
including the water usage?
The estimated water usage per household.
Pardon?
Estimated usage per household.
I didn't-
It's both.
Per year.
Correct, so it includes the projected capital cost to build it out and the debt service on that capital cost. And LaBerge did include estimated water usage per year in that 837.
So a portion of that 837 is then, well, actually,
Would be cheaper if you don't hook into the water.
That'll be
You
spelled
pay
out.
it.
it was 837 divided by 30 plus a little interest.
So if you don't use the water, you're gonna pay a lesser rate because you're just gonna pay for the bond,
The benefit
the
assessment.
benefit assessment. The benefit assessment is one amount, the usage is a,
So is it, am I correct in this is like $30 a year?
No.
Per year, 800.
No,
per
but
year.
$837 per
Per
year
year.
for 30 years,
yes,
including water usage.
right. And it's still high, I know it's high, but
No, we didn't pay anywhere near that much.
no, we didn't. But it was also 15 years ago.
No, I'm just saying,
And it was also a much larger district with a lot more residents in it.
correct.
This is a much smaller district. So per household, it's gonna be more because there's just less people.
I think
see
it
that
would be-
separated out. So when you're talking to people, you could.
Well, they're gonna send it to me now. I'll make sure y'all have it before the next town board meeting.
So we know how much.
They're gonna give us different scenarios.
Okay.
Okay, this is what I have right now, but they're
I
gonna
would
give
like
us a
to see-
scenario.
I would like to see that cut back somehow. I mean, maybe
And
some- the additional money.
I would say it's a higher, water usage. Like on the higher side, like what people's bills are, about now, I would say it's estimated on the,
When we looked at it, their estimate's like $100 higher than actual.
So it's the worst case scenario.
It's the worst case
That's
scenario.
correct.
You know,
But
if we
what-
could drive it down somehow, that'd be great.
But what
And
if
that
we
would
don't,
be additional funding.
Well, we can hope, and we're applied to everybody, we've asked everybody.
so
we're-
when,
we've
so
done everything we can do.
Jim, I know where your question's going, when the resolution's presented, it's gonna be for the maximum amount, and then it can come lower, but
but are you gonna take out the 900,000, because that's not guaranteed then from the county?
We're trying to pin them down right now. That's what the letter to the county's about.
So Ron LaBerge was on the call yesterday, and Ben Seiden in Ron's office. Ben was on the call, and Ben was really going over the economic side of this thing. And he said, well, at the county, it's gonna be minimally a 4 to 6 week process. Best case scenario could take longer to get everything through with the county. Well, then that means if you're waiting for a definitive county resolution approving that, you're gonna be 2 months later. And Pete, you were hesitant to wait 2 months because prices are going up. So what Ben did this afternoon was to send us off to the county, and as much assurance as the county can give that it's 900,000 short of the county resolution, that's what he's asked for. So, it's a good faith basis. Now, if it's a different county number, we talked about if it's 500, if it's, LaBerge is gonna put together various scenarios. We know what the other grant amounts are,
Right.
but the county one is uncertain, so we'll put a few different scenarios together, and that's what Keith will get to you. But that's the best that can be done right now. If you wait for the formal county legislature resolution approving that amount, then it will take a couple months.
And this is also, if the residents really are opposed to what we're doing, they can do a permissive referendum. But I honestly believe that if you're really worried about your drinking water, $800 some odd dollars is not a monumental amount to ask. And, that obviously there's concern there. I mean, we've all been at the meetings.
Especially when it includes the usage.
Okay, so what about the usage rate going up? That Brunswick just up there is because per 1,000 gallons or whatever, they got an increase from Troy. So we would get the increase from Troy, plus we have to pay like in Brunswick, like that other 0.25% or something on top of there.
Mhm.
So did they take that into consideration?
We already did that though. They already upped it. We already are making that payment.
That we're not gonna do another one because.
Well, they may do another one in a year, but we're locked in right now
Okay. For how long?
until their next increase. But they can't just automatically increase it. they have to show cause, and, you know, when Troy increases it, then Brunswick increases it, and then we end up paying an increase, but
It's usually like 3% or so.
But the Brunswick increase is, based on something that has been not consumer something, maybe.
'Cause-
Off of
Right.
what Troy, so like they can't go above that number.
But it's usually only around 3%.
There's a percentage that we have to pay from over and above what the
Yeah.
Troy increase is gonna be.
well, I mean, I'll make sure everybody has the same package that they send me, and, you know, it's all in here, it's just a lot of, you're not gonna be able to digest it all tonight, but it's there.
The fact that it includes the water and usage makes me feel much better. Because that's gotta be real.
Well,
Only
Does
if we
anybody
get that
use
kind of
the
money.
city water now? Because I don't use it.
I pay
I don't know how much it is.
$260 some odd dollars, and it was $340 to be in the district. These
But
people
we
are
pay for
paying about
water.
400 and something.
You're
No.
not gonna- you're not in the
It's,
district.
people's bills are anywhere from.
You're in the district? What you pay for water?
We should just laugh.
125.
Four times a year?
Yes.
I'd say he's a resident on the higher end of a bill.
Yes,
Because he has dogs?
no, because I have a couple daughters who like to use the
Oh, long showers, got it.
I would say like
Long showers of hot water, right?
25 to 45, 50 is kind of the average.
How much?
25 to 40.
Uh-oh.
Yours is much higher.
He's
bro.
cutting down the showers.
And
You
then
use about $100 a year?
there's some people, you know, two people, you end up, I mean, I look at some bills and I'm like, oh, I know they're higher, they've got 3 kids. You know, when you kind of know someone's,
So of that 837, you're thinking that it could be $600-700 would be the fixed cost, and about 100.
yeah.
No. The fixed cost, yeah, if you're talking about the bond.
Yeah.
It's somewhere around 400 and something.
Okay,
And it's only about $60 more than the original.
okay.
And we're talking 15 years later. It's really,
That's good.
I mean, I
But on the original, we did have help from a lot of federal money that was coming through at that time.
will hopefully get some federal money too this time. But I don't see the cost going down anytime soon, so the longer we wait, it's just gonna build and people are getting frustrated. No.
Okay.
I think, first of all, you know, it would be behoove us, someone, to explain to Stefanik's people, right, that we actually had the former congressman who was on board, and then he became the lieutenant governor, and and all his memorandums went out the door.
That's why she called.
So, yeah.
That
so,
was why she called,
Okay.
there's a post-it now on our thing, because she was very surprised that we didn't have federal
Right, okay, cool.
money for it, so I don't wanna say she was in shock, but it was definitely putting a flag on
Yeah.
it because of,
I wouldn't blame them.
yeah.
I'm confident that we'll get something from the federal government. I was disappointed we didn't get it last year, but also we didn't have the money that we had then. We were just applying for everything. We hadn't gotten the state grants yet. So now they see, look, we're, you know, $4 million into it already.
Help out now,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was watching an interview with her, man, she is sharp. She is sharp.
I almost didn't endorse her because I really disagree with a lot of what she says.
She is
They
sharp.
talked me into it, and I'm glad I did.
I think, like having once we know the numbers would be helpful, right? Like this is the capital expense, $400, you're gonna have to pay for 30.
Well, when
This is the, right?
we're gonna have a public hearing, and the bars will come out and explain it to everybody, and they'll do a presentation and break it all down. Our next month's meeting, I'd like to move forward as a board so that we can set the public hearing. And at that time, the public will be informed as what the breakdowns are. I'm hoping not to get into this huge debate at next month's meeting with residents about it, but
Does that like include like the scope of work on like what it's gonna cost to do, put the water lines in and everything?
That's the total bill. Right.
So, well, a few months ago, I'd said to you about, we should think about Algonquin Estates, for example. When the first water district was put in, Casal only repaved and did the work on the 1-lane roads. And we got hundreds of pictures of where total roads were destroyed from the equipment, and the town ended up having to fix those, and some of them. If you're gonna come into Mohawk Drive or Seneca, you should have it in there where the whole road gets paved, not just one lane. Because like Cayuga and Seneca are due to get repaved The only reason why they're not on the schedule to get paid is because this district's probably gonna go in. Tracy, Cherokee, and Mohawk just got paved 2 years ago. You know, so if we're gonna have equipment coming in and putting water lines in, it's bound to ruin that whole development.
Well, would that be something we would do with a contract with the contractor when we hire the company?
I think, given that, DJ should probably coordinate with LaBerge's office to make sure it's a cost, but it's probably not a huge cost in terms of the overall project. It might tweak a few numbers, but make sure that's in there. And then, because that will affect projected cost to the typical property, but then that would be within the contractor's vetted scope of work. You put in the water line, then you gotta repay it.
And we'll just make sure that when we put the bids out to the contractors, that they're aware that this is a.
Yeah, it should be done. I mean, if you're gonna go into Liberty Lane, I mean, that's only 14 foot wide in the wide spot. I mean, that just got repaved last year too. So half of what's gonna get water is all new blacktop, so it would just be a shame to see it.
So maybe you can coordinate with TJ and get a hold of Ron, and make sure that
Yeah.
those that you're looking for, they can at least put some numbers on that now.
Is that all right with everybody that bring it up next month?
Sure.
Okay,
So then is your goal to have a public hearing in May?
well, we can set it earlier if you want, but I'd like to have it just. Lavarge is probably gonna need some time to get it prepared,
So the following month's meeting.
or sooner.
Should we, if we get to that point, should we have that meeting maybe at
The firehouse, yeah.
So, like, there's a thought that came to me, I don't know why I just thought of this, but like, we could have like, if we chose, if the meeting's at 7 o'clock, we could have like it open and have conversations with people at 6 o'clock and have Ron, I'm sure, there to talk to people, which might help explain things. Not that we know how to talk to people, but just a thought. I've gone to meetings where it's like open, people come in, look at charts, ask some questions, but I'm not saying we have to do that. It's a thought I had.
Well, anything that'll make it easier and less contentious, I'm for.
It is what it is. That number is what the number is. It's not gonna get
I know,
much
but we're gonna have
cheaper.
people that are gonna be angry at that number. I can tell you right now that I just don't know how to make it any cheaper, and it's not going to get cheaper by waiting.
Well, if you do split out the water usage, then the people who aren't planning on hooking up could then see what it's actually.
That's a big portion.
Yeah.
Portion.
And
Isn't that what he did on his first presentation though?
I
He
think
had
so.
it all broken
I
out,
think
I
so,
thought.
yeah.
At that time, we hadn't gotten the 670 that we just got a couple weeks ago from the state. So that's one of the reasons that makes me want to pull the trigger, because if the county comes in with the money, I don't think we're ever going to be in a better spot than unless Stefanik steps up to the plate.
huge.
Maybe it'll be cheaper than the Horizon District.
Maybe by the time we have the meeting, we may know one.
And the other thing was that I think it's safe to say that the initial estimate was pretty healthy, right? Not that, of course, that was 6 months ago. The prices could be going up anyways, but I think it was kind of like everything, all the bells, and whistles, right? Not that-
Well, it's about $600 less than the last estimate, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, totally. But I meant the overall 5.5 million was like everything that you could want in a new district. So maybe it could have gone up, it might have gone down. Maybe we can have cost savings still.
Now, there's another item. We do have COVID money. My personal view is that I'd like to save the COVID money for things like the town park and a dog kennel.
More whole town projects.
Yeah,
I
and,
agree. This is
I agree.
all right,
Some of the town building.
well,
this is
Just
a very small.
whole town projects,
part
not
of
just
the town.
partial town. That makes sense.
anyone else? Anything else? DJ, you have anything else?
No,
Tiffany?
The only thing I have is that I had a phone call, played phone tag the past 2 days with Sierra with the website, just to get her thoughts on your edits, and so hopefully.
Not
we can-
expensive.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we
Just
can,
get it cleaned up and.
we can move on, and then the work I have done Tiffany's gonna help out so that once we actually start working with her, it'll be a short amount of time and not a dragged out, long process. So that's moving along, and hopefully I'll have an update in 2 weeks. I will have an update in 2 weeks.
Going back to COVID money, can we have a breakdown? People are
Yeah.
asking like where it's been spent and how much is left. Can we?
There's
have
230
that?
left, and we can give it a breakdown. We haven't, hasn't been spent in that many different spots. It's only been
Right.
a few different spots, so.
But it should be made public because
Yeah.
the
We can
listening-
actually put it in the advertiser if you want.
Well, we could do that. It's just like that the list, people from the list that were in the listening committee sessions, let's say, haven't gotten any feedback. So,
Well, we've got the basketball court in, and we're working on a park, and those were two major things they wanted.
yeah, but that's not the other money where it's been spent and how much we have left.
No, but we can get that. That's not gonna be hard. We haven't really spent on too many different things. We've spent a good portion of it, but it was on a few things.
Just so they can see where.
All right, I'll try to have that in your mailbox by the end of the week.
Okay.
Well, by the end of next week.
Excellent.
If people are putting agenda items on, can you guys have them to me by Thursday? And if they're supporting stuff, it just makes it
I promise I will not try any agenda items.
easier to put packets together.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Second,
So,
all in favor?
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Look at that. 7 o'clock, right?
Oh, is that right?
I'm thinking about.
Who is that?